Zalari sat at the back of the classroom, her purple fingers wrapped tightly around her notepad. Her bright green eyes scanned the room filled with strange humans, some whispering, some chewing gum, and one sleeping with his mouth open. She had never seen such a relaxed species in her life. This was her first day on Earth, and her first class at the Intergalactic University of Shared Sciences. The subject was human reproductive biology, and Zalari thought she was ready. She had studied the basics, taken pre-courses, and prepared her mind for the weirdness of Earthlings, but nothing could prepare her for what she was about to hear. Professor Mendez, a middle-aged human male with graying hair and kind eyes, walked into the room. His voice was calm, his tone casual. "Good morning, class. Today we'll be talking about human reproductive cycles, more specifically, male fertility." Zalari leaned forward. Her species, the Vel-Rin, had specific mating seasons. Once every 6 years, during the twin moon alignment, their males became fertile. It was a time of ceremony, of responsibility, of sacred biology. She expected humans to have something similar. Maybe once a year, or even less. Instead, the professor clicked a button on his holoscreen, and a chart appeared. "Unlike many species in the galaxy," he said, "human males are fertile every day, all year round, from puberty until old age." The classroom went silent. Zalari's notepad slipped from her hands. Her mouth hung open as her heart started racing. "Wait, what?" she whispered. One alien student giggled, another gasped. A girl from the Glexa species fainted on the spot, and Zalari? She stood up, eyes wide. "You mean, always, like, every day?" she asked loudly. Professor Mendez smiled politely. "Yes, that's correct. Human males don't follow a cycle like some other species. Their fertility is consistent." Zalari's brain couldn't process it. But that's chaos. What about control? What about the social order? How do you even survive?" she cried. A few human students chuckled. Jack, tall, quiet, with gentle eyes, turned his head slightly to glance at her. Zalari caught his gaze, then quickly looked away. Her cheeks turned a deep shade of lavender. She sat down slowly, trying to breathe. Her heart pounded in her chest like tribal drums. She imagined a world where males were always fertile, no seasons, no rituals, just always ready. It was terrifying. After class, she stormed down the hallway, books pressed to her chest. "This can't be true. It has to be a mistake, a test. Maybe it's some kind of weird joke humans play on outsiders," she muttered. She entered the campus library, found the human biology section, and began scanning through the books. One after another confirmed the same fact. Human males were biologically capable of reproduction year-round. No lunar cycles, no seasonal triggers, just stable, consistent fertility. No wonder they took over 3 moons last century. She whispered, "They're built like biological weapons." And yet, her eyes drifted back to that human boy in class, Jack. He hadn't laughed at her, hadn't mocked her. He looked calm, peaceful even, not dangerous, not wild. Zalari shook her head. "Focus. This is about science, not about his eyes." She opened a medical hologram, showing the male human body. She blushed deeply as she studied the structure. "It really is always active." "Incredible," she mumbled. Or insane. The more she read, the more confused she became. Humans didn't just have the ability. They had emotions, choice, and love tied to it. Some even stayed loyal to one mate their whole lives without being forced by biology. No chemical bonding, no enforced pair seasons, just emotional loyalty. Zalari closed the book and leaned back. They are always ready, but they choose when to act. That's terrifying, but also kind of admirable. Outside, rain began to fall softly on the glass dome above the library. Inside, an alien girl from a ritualistic species sat frozen, not from fear, but from fascination. She wasn't sure anymore if she was afraid of human males, or just incredibly curious. And Jack, the human boy with the quiet smile, the one she had watched from behind her books, She would need to know more about him. For science, of course, at least that's what she told herself. Zalari stood outside the classroom door the next morning, her hands shaking slightly. She hadn't slept well. Her mind was flooded with strange images books showing human biology, holoscreens replaying Jack's calm expression, and the professor's voice echoing in her ears. Human males are fertile all year round. No matter how many times she heard it, it still made her dizzy. She took a deep breath and stepped inside, hoping no one would notice her. But of course they did. A few alien students turned their heads. One of them, a furry Meccan girl, whispered something and giggled. Zalari felt her cheeks heat up again. Professor Mendez entered right on time, carrying a small tablet and his usual relaxed smile. "Good morning, everyone. Today, we continue our discussion on human reproductive traits. But first, Miss Zalari, you had quite the reaction yesterday. Care to share your thoughts before we move on?" Zalari froze. All eyes were on her, including Jack's. Her heart raced. But this time, she stood up slowly, raised her chin and said, "Yes, Professor, I was shocked. In my culture, males are fertile once every 6 years. For only 13 days. It is sacred, controlled, safe. But humans, how do you manage without chaos?" The professor nodded, not offended, not laughing, just calm. "A very good question," he said. Turning to the holoboard, "Human society does not depend on biological seasons. We have learned to balance biology with social structure, emotions, and choice." He tapped his tablet, and a chart appeared showing human hormonal patterns. "You see, while human males remain biologically fertile all the time, that doesn't mean they act without thinking. We are governed by emotions, ethics, and responsibility." Zalari tilted her head, confused. "You mean you don't have a sacred bonding ceremony? No temple approval? No hormonal contract between families?" A few human students laughed lightly. Professor Mendez smiled. "Not exactly. Instead of rituals, we use trust, love, communication, and laws. We build families based on personal choice, not just cycles." Zalari sat back down, her thoughts spinning again. She felt something stir inside her, not fear this time, but something harder to name. It was like a crack in the wall of everything she had been taught. Could a species that didn't follow strict rules still live with kindness and respect? The class continued, but Zalari wasn't really listening anymore. She kept glancing at Jack, who was scribbling notes calmly, occasionally looking toward her with a neutral expression. He didn't seem offended by her questions. In fact, when the class ended, he waited by the door. As Zalari tried to leave quickly, Jack stepped beside her. "Hey," he said gently, "you okay?" She paused, caught off guard by his voice. "I don't know," she replied honestly. "Everything I believed feels wrong now." Jack gave a small smile. "Different doesn't mean wrong," he said. "It just means new." Zalari looked at him, really looked. His face wasn't threatening. His voice wasn't aggressive. He wasn't wild like she had imagined, just human. She found herself asking, "Is it true that your people stay loyal even without a cycle?" Jack nodded. "Some do, not all. But many of us believe in love, in building something real. We don't need a hormone season to choose someone, sometimes. We just know." Zalari blinked. "Just know? That sounds frightening." Jack laughed softly. "It is, but it's also beautiful." She didn't respond. Her heart was doing strange things, fluttering, rising, falling. She wasn't ready to admit it yet, but something inside her had started to shift. That evening, she went back to her dorm and opened her private journal. For the first time since coming to Earth, she wrote something personal. Humans are not bound by season. They are bound by feeling. Maybe that is stronger. She sat by the window, watching 2 moons rising behind Earth's horizon. Her thoughts drifted again to Jack's words, his smile, his calm eyes. He didn't laugh at her fears. He didn't judge her culture. He simply listened, and that made her wonder if human males were always fertile. then maybe it wasn't biology that made them dangerous. Maybe it was understanding that made them powerful. Zalari sat in the corner of the library again, her chin resting on one hand. Her eyes weren't focused on the holographic pages in front of her. They were fixed on someone else, across the room. Jack sat at a table by the window, sunlight hitting. The sight of his face, he wasn't doing anything special, just reading, tapping his fingers lightly as he turned pages. But to Zalari, he looked like a mystery she couldn't solve. She had decided to observe a human male. For science, of course, she had chosen Jack. Not because he was the loudest or the most muscular. There were stronger ones in class. Not because he flirted or acted bold, others did that too. But Jack. Jack had something else. He scared her, not because he acted dangerous. He scared her because he didn't. Jack was calm, quiet, and confident. He didn't need to raise his voice or show off. He helped an older professor carry books the other day, smiled at cleaning robots, and even waited for the alien girl with 8 legs to walk through the narrow hallway first. There was power in his stillness, like a hidden current under a peaceful river. Zalari had read that human males could be emotional too, that they cried, laughed, loved, and protected. But watching Jack made her feel it, not just understand it. He's always fertile, she whispered to herself again. But he never acts wild. How? That question kept haunting her. If humans had no rules to stop them, then what held them back? She looked at Jack's hands, large, strong, resting gently on the table. She imagined them being used for violence, and then remembered how he helped. A child pick up dropped snacks in the hallway just yesterday. Zalari scribbled notes in her journal. Observation Day 2. Subject Jack appears peaceful. Fertility status, active. Behavioral aggression, none. Reactions toward others, calm. Kind, protective. Threat level, unknown, but oddly low. She paused, staring at the last line. Her fingers hovered over the journal, then added personal. Reaction, confusing. Just then, Jack looked up and caught her watching. Their eyes met. Zalari froze. Her heart jumped like a startled creature. But Jack didn't look annoyed or embarrassed. He just smiled. It wasn't a flirt. Not a grin, just a soft, curious smile, like he saw her, not just noticed her. Zalari looked away quickly, pretending to read again. But her face was glowing bright violet, her species' version of a deep blush. "I've made contact," she whispered under her breath. Unintended, but made. Later that evening, she walked down the campus path, her cloak wrapped tight around her. She thought about everything she had seen. Jack had power, but didn't use it to dominate. He had freedom, but didn't use it to take. He had no sacred rules holding him back, and yet he chose to be kind. And that was what frightened her the most. Because if Jack could choose, then he could also choose not to. Her kind believed biology controlled behavior. If you weren't in a mating season, you were calm. If you were, you followed rituals to prevent harm. But humans lived every day with that biological storm inside them. And still, they walked peacefully among others. That was real strength, Zalari realized, not suppressing power, but knowing when not to use it. She sat down on a bench under a glowing streetlight. The sky was darker now, the stars starting to show. Jack walked by on the path, carrying a bag of books. He saw her, paused, then walked over. "Hey," he said. "You're always in the library lately, doing extra research?" Zalari looked up, trying to act calm. "Yes, I'm curious about human biology. It's complex," Jack chuckled. "That's one word for it, yeah." There was a pause. Zalari gathered her courage. "You're always calm," she said. Softly, "Even when you don't have to be." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Shouldn't I be?" Zalari looked away. "Where I'm from, males only behave when the season ends." Jack sat beside her on the bench. Not too close, not invading her. Space just close enough to be kind. "Maybe calm is a choice," he said. "Not something controlled by the calendar." Zalari didn't answer. She was too busy feeling things she didn't understand, yet curiosity, nervousness, and something else, something warm. And in that moment, she realized Jack wasn't just a subject for her research anymore. He was the reason she couldn't sleep, the reason her notes didn't make sense, the reason her heart raced even when he smiled. Zalari stood up suddenly. "I need to go," she said quickly. "Too much stimulation." Jack stood too, smiling gently. "See you tomorrow then?" Zalari nodded, then walked off, but her steps were unsteady and her chest felt strange. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't scared of the unknown. She was curious about it. And that curiosity had a name. Jack *. The cafeteria was crowded and buzzing with life. Alien voices mixed with human laughter. The scent of different worlds floated in the air, spicy Glexan roots, steamy earth pizza, and boiled blue eggs from the moons of Tyro. Zalari walked in carefully, tray in hand. Her eyes darted left and right, searching for a seat. She didn't like crowds. Not today, not after last night. She hadn't been able to sleep, not with Jack's voice echoing in her head. "Maybe calm is a choice," he had said. That sentence stuck to her thoughts like glue. She chose a table in the far corner. Away from the noise, she sat down, pushing her food around with her fork. Her stomach felt strange, nervous, twisted. She hadn't even touched the glowing green cubes on her plate. That's when the door opened behind her, and he walked in, Jack, with his usual calm smile and steady steps, holding a tray with simple earth food, grilled bread, fruit, and something brown and soft she couldn't name. Zalari didn't mean to react, but the moment he passed by her table, her instincts exploded. A scent hit her nose, warm, deep, and alive. Her pupils widened. Her skin turned a brighter violet. Her body stiffened like it had been hit by electricity. "What is that smell?" she whispered in panic. It was him. Jack's scent wasn't bad, no, it was worse. It was pleasing. To her species, scent was everything. During their rare mating seasons, a male's scent told the females they were ready. But this wasn't her season. She wasn't supposed to feel this. Not now, not here, not for a human. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the table. The smell was faint to others, but to her alien senses, it was overwhelming. No, this can't be," she whispered. "My body, it's reacting, but why? He's not even my species." Her breathing became shallow. Her heart thudded like thunder inside her chest. She looked up and saw Jack walking toward her, tray in hand, smile on his face. "Mind if I sit here?" he asked kindly. Zalari panicked. No. Yes, I was just leaving." She stood up so fast her tray flipped, food sliding off the edge and crashing to the floor. Everyone turned to look, some giggling, others gasping. Zalari's cheeks flushed deep violet as she backed away. "I'm sorry, I need air." She rushed out of the cafeteria, almost slipping. Jack stood frozen, holding his tray, watching her run. Outside, Zalari leaned against a cold pillar, her chest rising and falling rapidly. "What is happening to me?" she whispered. She wasn't in heat. Her species had strong control over such cycles. But Jack's scent had triggered something ancient, something her books hadn't warned her about. "It's his fertility," she whispered. "It's active. And my body knows it." She felt embarrassed, angry, confused. She wasn't a wild animal. She was a scholar, a thinker, a scientist, and yet, one simple scent had made her feel like she'd forgotten all logic. Suddenly, soft footsteps approached. Zalari turned, and there he was, Jack, holding 2 napkins and a bottle of water. "You okay?" he asked softly. "You looked dizzy back there." Zalari turned away, hiding her face. "I'm fine, I just..." "Strong cafeteria smells," she lied. Jack didn't push her. He handed her the water. "It's all right. You don't have to explain." She took the bottle slowly, their fingers touched. Just slightly, but her heart jumped. He didn't smell anymore. Not here in the open air, but the memory of it was still burning in her mind. "Why are you so calm?" she asked suddenly. "Aren't you always ready? How do you function like this every day?" Jack looked at her, confused. Then he smiled. You mean fertility? She nodded, cheeks hot again. I guess. I just live with it. It's normal to us, he said. We don't think about it all the time. It's not like we're chasing people around. Zalari blinked. But you could. You're biologically capable. Jack laughed gently. Yeah. But being able to do something doesn't mean you should. That's what makes us human. I guess. Zalari stared at him. His words weren't complex, but they shook her deeply. He had that same quiet strength again, the kind that wasn't loud, but could still change a person's world. She looked away, whispering, You smell like power. But you act like peace. Jack tilted his head. Was that a compliment? Zalari almost smiled, almost. I don't know, she said. I'm still figuring that out. They stood there for a while, just watching the sky, for the first time. The silence between them felt warm and deep inside. Zalari realized something she didn't want to admit yet. It wasn't just his scent that affected her, it was him. Zalari sat alone in the campus garden, surrounded by glowing night flowers and humming light bugs. The air was cool, the sky above scattered with stars and the pale rings of Earth's moon. But her thoughts were far from peaceful, for days now. One question kept burning in her mind, a question so bold, so personal. She couldn't believe she was even considering asking it. But she had to know, every time she looked at Jack, his quiet strength, his easy smile, the way he made even silence feel safe. She felt more confused. Was it just curiosity? Or something more? She clenched her fists. No more guessing, she told herself. I need answers. So she messaged him. Can we talk? Alone. Please meet me at the garden bench after dinner, he replied minutes later. Sure. See you there. Now. She waited, nervous. Her two hearts thudded unevenly. When Jack arrived, he looked casual, relaxed, wearing his usual hoodie and holding 2 warm drinks. Hey, he said gently, sitting beside her. Brought you one. It's hot chocolate. I think aliens like it too. She took it with a small nod. Thanks, she whispered, trying not to look him in the eye. There was a pause. Then in one breath she blurted, Is it true that you never stop? Jack blinked, confused. Never stop? What? Zalari's face turned violet red. Fertility, I mean, you're always ready? Even now? Even while we sit here? Jack almost choked on his drink. Then he gave a nervous laugh. Wow, you don't waste time, huh? She looked away. I'm sorry, it's just, in my culture, this is unthinkable. We have strict rules, safe times, but you live with that power inside you every day. Jack leaned back, sighing. Yeah, it's true. Technically, human males are always biologically ready, but that doesn't mean we walk around thinking about it all day. Zalari stared at him. But how? How do you stay calm, focused, kind? Jack thought for a moment. I guess we learn from a young age. We're taught respect, boundaries, consent. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Zalari shook her head slowly. That's powerful. She looked at her hands. You're born with strength, but you choose gentleness, my people. We wait for a chemical signal to behave, but you decide it every day. Jack smiled softly. It's not always easy, but we try. It's about love, really, about treating someone like a person, not a target. Those words hit Zalari like a quiet earthquake. She felt a strange warmth in her chest, not fear, not confusion, just something soft. So she whispered, You're always fertile. But you still wait for love? Jack nodded. Yeah, love makes it real. Without that, it's just empty. Zalari looked up at him, eyes wide. That's the most dangerous thing I've ever heard. Jack chuckled. Why? Because it's honest? She nodded. Yes, in my world, honesty is filtered through tradition. But you speak like emotion is enough. There was silence for a while. Then Jack asked quietly, Why does this bother you so much, Zalari? She hesitated, then finally said, Because I think I'm starting to feel something I don't understand, and that terrifies me. Jack didn't push her. He just listened. His presence was steady, safe, like he knew she was fragile, but never treated her like she was broken. Zalari continued. When I first heard humans were always fertile, I thought it meant danger, but now I think it means depth, endless possibility. And that's what scares me. Not you, not your biology, but the fact that I'm beginning to want to understand it. Jack looked at her, serious now. You don't have to be afraid, Zalari, not of me. She nodded slowly. I know. They sat in silence again, but it wasn't empty. It was full of unspoken truths, of questions no longer asked, of emotions too new to name, and for the first time, Zalari didn't feel like a student studying a foreign species. She felt like someone slowly falling into something beautiful, not because it was logical, not because it followed a season, but because it felt right, and to her, that was the most alien thing of all. Zalari walked into the lecture hall, her head low and her heart heavy. She could feel the stares, hear the whispers. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. That's the alien girl who's obsessed with human males. She asked him about his mating cycle, so embarrassing. Heard she got close enough to smell him. The laughter stung, but she didn't say anything. She just sat down quietly in the second row, hands folded in her lap. A week ago, she would have run. She would have hidden in the library, but not now, not after what she'd learned. Not after Jack. It started after someone overheard her talking with Jack in the garden. She didn't know who, but it didn't matter anymore. The rumors had spread fast, jumping between species, turning her curiosity into gossip now. Everyone thought she was some kind of desperate Velrin girl, chasing after a human male, just because he was always ready. Zalari clenched her jaw. They didn't understand. They didn't know what she knew. They hadn't heard Jack's voice when he talked about love. They hadn't seen his eyes when he listened. They hadn't felt the calm he carried inside him, stronger than any mating hormone. Professor Mendez entered the hall. All right, class, he began. Today we'll be discussing interspecies perceptions of reproduction and how misunderstanding biology leads to cultural conflict. Zalari's eyes widened. Was this fate? Halfway through the lecture, a tall, blue-skinned student raised his hand. Professor, he said, smirking, wouldn't you agree that species who are always fertile are more unstable, less trustworthy? Some students chuckled. Others nodded. Zalari's heart started pounding. She looked at the professor, hoping he'd shut it down, but instead, Mendez smiled politely. That's an interesting viewpoint, he said. Would anyone like to respond? There was silence. No one raised their hand, and then, slowly, Zalari stood. The entire room turned toward her. Even Jack, sitting near the back, looked up with concern. I would, she said softly. I'd like to respond. The professor stepped back and gestured to the front. Zalari walked down the steps, each one shaking under her feet. She stood in front of the class, looked out at all the faces, some mocking, some curious, a few blank. When I first learned that human males are fertile all year round, I was terrified, she began. To me, it felt unnatural, dangerous, uncontrolled. A few students nodded as if agreeing with her, but she raised her hand, stopping them. But then I met Jack, she continued, and I realized something. Humans are not dangerous because of their biology. They are powerful because they have self-control. They do not need sacred laws or moon rituals to be kind. They choose it every day. The room grew quieter. Some of you laugh at their biology. You say always fertile, like it means they are beasts. But I say this, who is stronger? One who is forced by biology to behave, or one who has the power and chooses not to misuse it? Now even the whisperers were quiet. Zalari's voice grew firm. Jack didn't take advantage of me. He didn't push, didn't mock, didn't act superior. He listened. He respected my confusion. And he showed me what human strength really is. She took a breath. I'm not ashamed to ask questions. I'm not ashamed to learn. And I will never be ashamed to admire what I now understand. The professor clapped once, slowly, then the rest of the class followed. Even the blue-skinned student who started the insult looked down, embarrassed. Zalari walked back to her seat. Legs still shaking, as she sat down, Jack passed her a folded note. She opened it quietly under the desk. It read, "You didn't just stand up for me. You stood up for something bigger. Proud of you." Zalari smiled, a soft, true smile, not because she won an argument, but because she found her voice. And that voice didn't belong to a confused alien girl anymore. It belonged to someone who chose to understand, to see beyond biology, beyond fear. The whispers would fade, but the strength she discovered today, that would stay with her forever. The sky was glowing with soft orange and gold. Sunset on Earth was different from Zalari's home world, gentler, slower, like time itself wanted to pause and admire it. She stood near the edge of the garden dome, watching the twin moons rise. Behind the Earth's clouds, tonight felt different, and she knew why. Jack was waiting by the bench, the same one where she had once asked him the most awkward question of her life. She remembered it clearly. "Is it true that you never stop?" She smiled to herself now. She had come so far from that girl. No longer just curious, no longer just confused. Now she was certain. She turned and walked toward him. Jack stood up when he saw her, hands tucked into his jacket, smile quiet but warm. "You came," he said softly. Zalari nodded. "Of course I did." They sat down together, just like before, but this time, the silence between them was full of knowing, not fear. Zalari took a deep breath. "Jack," she began, "I need to tell you something, and I might say it all wrong, but I need to say it." Jack turned to her, giving her his full attention. He always listened like no one else was in the world. Zalari looked down at her hands. "Where I come from, love is decided by cycles. The body chooses, the family approves, and feelings come later maybe, if you're lucky. But you flipped that." Jack stayed quiet, waiting. "You made me feel things out of order," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "First fear, then confusion. And then, something warmer, something that didn't wait for biology." She looked up at him now, her green eyes bright in the evening light. "I used to think seasons were safety, now I think love is stronger than timing." Jack blinked slowly, then smiled. "What are you saying, Zalari?" She exhaled. "I don't care about seasons anymore," she whispered. "I just want you." The words hung in the air like electricity. Jack looked at her, quiet for a moment. Then he reached out, gently brushing her hand with his. "You're not the only one who's felt out of order," he said. "You made me slow down. Look deeper, you made me feel seen." Zalari's fingers curled around his. "But I don't know how this works. We're different, Jack. Our worlds, our ways. Everything." He nodded. "We are different, but love doesn't care about species. It only cares about how we treat each other." She laughed softly. "You humans always say such dangerous things." Jack tilted his head. "Is that a compliment?" She nodded. "Yes, the highest kind." They sat there as the stars began to shine above the dome. No crowds, no gossip, no whispers, just the two of them. Zalari rested her head gently on his shoulder. Her body didn't tremble anymore. Her heart didn't race from fear. It beat calmly, like it had found the rhythm it had been missing. "When I go back home," she said, "they'll expect me to act normal, to forget all this." Jack looked at her. "And will you?" She shook her head. "No, I'll remember everything, especially you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small metal ring. It wasn't fancy, just a simple silver band with a tiny earth crystal inside. "I don't know what your people use to show connection," he said, "but this is what humans give when something matters." He gently placed it in her palm. Zalari looked at it, then looked at him. "It matters," she whispered, closing her hand over it. They didn't need to say anything more. The stars watched them from above. The flowers glowed softly in approval. And there, under Earth's sky, an alien girl with strict seasons, and a human male who never needed one, chose each other, not because biology said so, but because their hearts did. In that choice, They created something stronger than science, stronger than fear, stronger than cycles. They created love.